Genitalia, the male or female reproductive organs. The genitalia include internal and external structures. The female internal genitalia are the ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, cervix, and vagina. The female external genitalia are the labia minora and majora, the vulva, and the clitoris. Sexually transmitted diseases are caused by sexually transmitted infections, STIs. They are spread mainly by sexual contact. STIs are caused by bacterial, viruses, or parasites. A sexually transmitted infection may pass from one person to person in blood, semen, or vaginal and other bodily fluids. STIs can affect genitalia and extragenitalia sites in women. Gonorrhea and chlamydia typically present as cervicitis. Bacterial vaginosis (BV) and trichomoniasis can also cause cervicitis, but more commonly manifest as vaginitis. HSV and HPV most typically affects the vulva or external genitalia of women. These problems can be related to menstrual cycles, sex, infection, and child control methods. They can also be related to hormone changes, medicines, or changes after pregnancy. A change in normal vaginal discharge may be the first sign of a vaginal problem. Changes in urination also may be a symptom of a problem. The symptoms of genital diseases are new or worse signs of infections, such as redness, warmth, pus or fever, painful lump or swelling, new or worse rash, new or worse urinary problems such as burning with urination or blood in urine, and symptoms occur more often or are more severe. How can you prevent genital infections? You can take steps to prevent infections. Keep your vagina area dry, wash your pubic area gently with warm water, wear cotton underwear, use condoms during sex, clean reusable products like menstrual cups, diaphragms, cervical cups, and spermicide applicator after every use, and take probiotics or eat more yogurt.
Let me introduce our doctor. Our doctor's name is Dr. Fumilade Adepoju. She's a public health physician in Youth. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for
It's good to have you.
Thank
you look good.
So do you.
If Barbara Soki was here, the presenter, she would have said, how, like, you're so young and yes, you're so good with your profession. I miss already. Okay, all right. First of all, we heard the last statement, which was for ladies to eat more yogurt. But in my head, I'm like, is that not even going to make it worse? Like, if you have maybe a genital disease or whatever, won't it make it worse? But what's your take, just that part?
Okay, so the thing with yogurt is because, you know, yogurt contains, yogurt is like a culture medium.
Oh.
It contains bacteria, good bacteria. So I guess the reason they said women should take more yogurt is for them to have more of the good bacteria in their gut. So, you know, that helps to keep the natural flora in the genital area. So I guess that's why they said.
Oh, amazing. Oh, wow. I really don't like milk before, but I think with this one.
Not milk.
I know, that's what I said. I really didn't even like milk, anything that tastes milk, because of course yogurt, milk, they're almost similar. Yeah. But I think right now I'll start taking yogurt. Amazing. Okay, my first question is, what are the common genital diseases that mostly we overlook, both male and female?
Okay, thank you. So the thing with genital diseases, we mostly call them sexually transmitted diseases. There are a lot of them. There are a lot, over 30 of them.
Oh, wow.
But there are some that are common. Some are more common than others. So among the common ones, we have diseases like gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydia, you know, trichomoniasis. Then we have the viral ones too. Okay. Diseases like HIV and AIDS, hepatitis B, human papillomavirus, you know. So those are some of the common ones, and herpes virus as well. So those are the common ones. So they are mostly caused by bacteria, viruses, and sometimes parasites.
Parasites. So oh, wow.
There are still so many others, but those are like the few common ones. Yeah.
Okay, so how can one manage or control or, you know, avoid sexual transmitted diseases? How can one you know, control, avoid, or manage them?
Okay, so like the name, sexually transmitted infections, sexually transmitted diseases. So, meaning that they are acquired through sex, through sexual contact. So, the best way to control it or prevent it is to avoid having sex.
Oh, wow.
That's the best way to stay away. Abstinence is the best form of control. But of course, in married people would have sex, so you can't take that out. So in the case where abstinence is not an option, so it is encouraged to practice safe sex.
Okay.
Meaning that people should have protected sex. Even when you're in a union, you should have protected sex by wearing condoms. We have male condoms, we have female condoms. But the male condoms are more common than the female condoms. So it is recommended to have protected sex. And also, in sexual relationships, people should be open with each other, communicate, let your partner know your sexual history. That way you are able to manage anything that comes up. So if you cannot abstain, use a condom. And also stay faithful to your partner.
Right, don't keep having different partners.
Exactly, don't have multiple sexual partners, because if you have multiple sexual partners, it is more difficult to control sexually transmitted infections, because normally when somebody has an infection, if you know you only have one sexual partner, it is easy to trace. You can say that, oh, this is probably where I got it from. But if you have multiple sexual partners and your partners also have multiple sexual partners, it becomes very cumbersome to deal with. So
you won't even know where it's starting from.
Exactly. You won't know where you got it from. And to be difficult to treat. And the cycle keeps going on and on and on. So those are the common ways to actually control it or prevent sexually transmitted infections.
All right. Amazing. I hope some people can actually do that. Because you see, a lot of people will believe that in relationship, some men, some women will tell you, please, if I'm not having an intercourse or intimacy with my partner, we are not in love. It means we are not a couple. Like you just heard from the medical doctor, abstinence is key. But even if you have to go protected. Okay, I want to ask this question. You know we have different symptoms for different genital diseases. But now, just to put it as one, genital diseases. Now, what are the major symptoms that one needs to look out for, that once you have these symptoms, quickly go and see your doctor? Immediately, without even having a second thought. What are those major symptoms one needs to look out for?
Okay, so most of the time, this okay, so now most sexually transmitted diseases do not show any symptoms.
Oh, wow.
So most of the time, people have them and they don't know. They don't know they are infected. So but some of them also manifest. They show symptoms. You know, you start to see some things, you start to feel some things, but most of the time the symptoms are not specific. Those symptoms can also mimic other conditions. But commonly seen in people that have sexually transmitted infections or diseases, for the females, they can start to have some abnormal vaginal discharge. You know, there's a normal vaginal discharge and there's the abnormal one. So when it...
before we go further, what does, how do you know your vaginal? Because we're talking to people like they don't know anything. So what is the normal, how does the normal look, and how does the abnormal discharge look?
Okay, so the normal one is not, it's different at different times of the menstrual cycle.
Oh, okay.
But it doesn't cause any issues to the female.
Okay.
All females have vaginal discharge, which is normal. But when you start to see some funny colors, you know, you start to itch.
Okay.
You start having other symptoms. You can start having fever, low abdominal pain. Then something is wrong somewhere.
Wow.
So some common symptoms of these infections or diseases, like I said, abnormal vaginal discharge for the female, Sometimes females could have what we call intermenstrual bleeding. Bleeding that is unusual. It's not your usual menstrual bleeding.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can have bleeding in between periods, you know. Your period is not due yet, but you're having some funny bleeding.
But I thought they said some people's cycle are different. You could even see your menstrual period twice in a month.
Yes, cycles are different. So each person knows the way their body works. Each person knows how their cycle is.
Okay.
So when something is out of that
cycle
that you're used to, then there's something going on somewhere. So other symptoms could be itching.
Okay.
There could be ulceration. You could have ulcers in the genital area or on the thighs. There could be rashes. There could be fever. The person could feel tired. There could be lower abdominal pain. And you know, these symptoms are not like, I'm telling you these symptoms, you're already thinking of some diseases, and then you're thinking, oh, could that also be? You know? So that's why I said the symptoms are not specific.
Okay.
But there are some symptoms that, when you see them, you could definitely tell that, this might be a sexual infection or a disease. So for the guys could also have discharge, urethral discharge from their penis. They could have that discharge. They could have painful urination.
Okay, I've heard of that one.
Yeah, they could have painful urination. They could have sores on their genital area. They could have rashes. They could feel unwell. They could have fever. In some cases, you could have some swellings, what we call lymph nodes.
Okay.
Lymphadenopathy. You could have that in some areas of the body. So, but like I said, the symptoms are not really specific. So the best thing to do is, if you have any symptoms, visit your nearest healthcare facility.
Yes, I have a whole lot of persons, you know, when you advise them, they don't take to advice. A whole lot of persons, once they start feeling, you know, any slight itch in their private part, and I'm talking about the ladies now, just a slight itch, they just itch a little bit, maybe 5 minutes later they itch again, 10 minutes later they itch again. The next thing they will tell you, I beg, where can I get what's this antibiotics that is very common? Where can I get antibiotics? Would I be infection? You know, I'll be like, why would you think you have infection? Have you checked your underwear? Have you checked if you have suffocated that area that it needs to be washed and, you know, open to air? Like, why are people always going for that? Now, I want you to speak on that and probably give advice to ladies that just feel that every little thing they are going for antibiotics, every little thing they're going for antibiotics, because I learned antibiotics could even affect your fertility, you know, stage or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so what I'll say about that, you know, you said a lot of ladies, they feel any little thing down there, they're already looking for antibiotics to use. So it is not every time you feel something down there, it's not every time you itch that you have an infection. Other things could cause that. You could be reacting to some material, like, you know, underwear. Some people have allergies. So if your underwear is not made of breathable material, you could have that irritation there. Also, if your genital area is moist, that could be a breeding ground for so many things. So you could start to itch, feel uncomfortable. So it is not every time you feel these things that you need to go take antibiotics, because you're even causing problems for yourself by taking antibiotics that are not prescribed to you.
Yes.
Because that is one of the major problems we have in this part of the world. People self-medicate a lot.
A whole lot.
And that has caused a lot of antibiotics not to work anymore. We call that antimicrobial resistance. So when you abuse medication that are supposed to be prescription medication, such things happen. The drugs now eventually don't work for what they're supposed to treat anymore. So it becomes a problem. So when you now actually fall sick and need antibiotics, they don't work, and then they now have to start trying different antibiotics, going to the very high ones, you know, like if you want to kill a cockroach, you know, you are now starting with a sledgehammer, then from the sledgehammer you're going to a bulldozer. So that is like a picture of what happens when you take antibiotics unnecessarily. It is only in this part of the world that people use antibiotics without prescription. If you go abroad, you can't get antibiotics over the counter. Right. You can't walk into a pharmacy and say, give me antibiotics. Nobody will give it to you without a doctor's prescription. And even when you go to the doctors, they don't just prescribe it. There has to be that need for it before they prescribe. But here, you can just walk into the pharmacy, hey, give me tetracycline, you know. People just use antibiotics anyhow. So that is a major problem that we have with antimicrobial therapy.
Now, the thing is, it's not just even the antibiotics. Then we come to this area of when people have slight headache or headache. In fact, as I mentioned headaches, I think I want to have one now. You know, when they have slight headache or, you know, migraine or whatever, some people just even call it migraine and they don't even know if it's migraine. They don't know how it feels to have, because I feel like I've seen someone who has a migraine and was hospitalized. And so when people tell me I have a migraine, I'm like, you don't have migraine. If you have migraine, you'll be on hospital bed. Now, looking at that now, a lot of people have headache and the next thing they are going to take paracetamol, Panadol. They take it anyhow, believe you me, and we all know that. Now, it gets to a stage where some people will actually even believe that, okay, if I don't take this paracetamol or Panadol, it's going to, I won't get fine. You know, I heard a story of where a woman was actually having a headache, and the headache was, you know, giving her a poor sight, like she can't stay her eyes open for quite a long time. So she went to the hospital and she told the doctor that she's having a headache, that she needs paracetamol, she needs Panadol. That pharmacy has refused to give her paracetamol because they feel she always abuses it, that's the only thing that can work for her now. So the doctor said, okay, no problem, she should lie down. So they brought, I don't know how they did it, they brought a drug that looks like paracetamol, but it was just maybe like vitamin C or something, and gave it to her. And in like 10 minutes, she was like, doctor, I feel very fine. But it's just the doctor that knows that. You're used to paracetamol, so you feel if it's a psychological thing. If you don't take that paracetamol, you won't be fine. But the thing is, you need rest, which is why I know it's a little bit of a digression for what we're talking about, but I would like you to still give advice to people that sometimes when you have a headache, you just need to rest your head a little bit, or what do you think they should actually do even at that position when they feel a headache? And please, can you be able to, you know, give the difference between a migraine and a headache?
Okay, talking about people using medication anytime they feel the slightest thing. So it is not everything that needs medication. If you have a headache could be caused by so many things. It could be caused by stress. It could be caused by hunger sometimes. And it could also mean that there are some other sinister things going on. It could be your blood pressure sometimes. So you need to check and make sure that this is it before taking any medication. As common as paracetamol is, it is not something that should be taken all the time if you don't need it, because some people feel like, oh, if I don't use these drugs, I won't feel okay. Or the slightest thing, you feel a bit tired, you're like, I have malaria. You start to take anti-malaria. Some people take paracetamol every day, and they don't know that they're already damaging their organs. You're damaging your liver, you're damaging your kidney by taking so many of these things. So that is why drugs need to be prescribed. But here, because we can get so many of these drugs over the counter, you just walk into a pharmacy, or you even see some people hawking it on the road. They give you that combination, you know, they mix paracetamol with ibuprofen with so many things, and you know, there's that concoction that they sell around, and then they also mix it with alcohol. People just take that. Some people take that every day and they feel, oh, I'm fine, and they feel that if they don't take those things, they don't feel well. But sometimes simple rest could take care of all these things. So that is why it is advised that you don't self-medicate. If you feel anything and you've rested, you know, you've done what you're supposed to do, and it doesn't go away in about 3 days, go and see your healthcare provider.
Exactly, my thoughts exactly. Thank you very much for that advice. Okay, yes, we're still talking about, let's go back to our genital diseases now. Okay. I just needed to put that out there because I've seen a lot of people, and sometimes I do that when it comes to paracetamol, but I think I do that when I find out the headache today, after resting, it goes away, it comes back again the following day. Then by the 3rd day, I don't wait for nobody to tell me anything. I just go bypass that. So, but now, after 3 days, if the rest does not work, medical care. Okay, let's get to know the difference between STD and STI, because a lot of people don't know. They just believe once they tell them, yeah, you have STD, they'll be like, ah, yeah. When they tell them you have STI, they'll be like, ah, they all believe it's the same thing. They don't know the difference. So can you please tell us the difference between STD and STI?
Okay, so well, in most of the time, the two are used interchangeably. So sexually transmitted infections, they are infections that people get or contract through sexual contacts. Sexually transmitted diseases are the diseases people get through sexual contact. So the slight difference is that we call it sexually transmitted infections. We call it an infection when you do not see any signs or symptoms of that infection in the person's body. The person is infected with either the bacteria or the virus or the parasites. It's in their body, but they don't show any symptoms. So at that stage, you call it an infection. But when you now start to see symptoms, you start to see manifestations. So that is when you call it a disease, you know. So they're like the same thing. So that's why you see people use the two interchangeably. Sometimes they say STI, sometimes they say STDs. So the difference is just that in disease, there is symptom. In infection, you may not see any symptoms.
Okay, before we actually continue what we have a Zoom guest that should be joining us fabulously. I hope you're getting to learn about genital diseases. And of course, sometimes when you say you have STI and STD, like she said, it's the same thing. Infection is when there is no symptom. Disease is when it is now having a symptom. And I think it's pretty serious at that stage, right? And about genital diseases. And yes, we just differentiated what STD is and from STI. And if I'm just supposed to summarize, basically when you have genital, we have a lot of them, but when you have genital diseases, you are definitely in big trouble, obviously. So, but you just need to actually meet your medical doctor. But when you have STI, like she said, the doctor said, you don't get to have symptoms, but when you have the disease, you get to have symptoms. And she also advised, if you have headache, please go and see a doctor after 3 days. Don't just resort to paracetamol or self-medication, in fact. And if you also have itching as a lady or one thing, I don't know about guys because I'm a lady, so I said more with ladies. So please don't just go and start buying whatever antibiotics that you think works for you. And that brings me to asking this question. Do these antibiotics, so much taking of antibiotics, does it actually affect fertility on the long run when you take too much of antibiotics? For the ladies, no, nothing like that.
No.
Oh, okay. No. Okay, so on this other side, I asked about the difference between migraine and headache.
Okay, so headache is headache.
Yes. Your head banging.
Headache is the headache you feel, that ache you feel in your head. It could be generalized, it could be on just one side of the head. So migraine is like an advanced form of headache. But people just say, oh, I have migraine because you have that headache. You know?
Yeah.
So migraine is like a severe form of headache. You know, but most people just say, oh, I have migraine. If they feel any headache, they'll be like, I have migraine.
I just smile actually when I hear people say they have migraine. I used to see them walking around doing stuff like, you don't have migraine, my darling. Anyways, let's ask this. How often should one get tested? First, let's ask that because I have another question attached to this. But how often should one get tested, despite any symptom or whatever? How often should one get tested?
Okay, so for people who are sexually active, it is advised for them to get tested at least once in a year. If you're in a sexual relationship, you are sexually active, you should get tested at least once in a year. Or when you have a new sexual partner, it is also advised to know the status of your partner. So both of you should get tested, and then so you know your status, and then you can proceed from there and take the necessary precautions.
Okay, so how often should one get tested, and when tested, does it mean when tested and treated, does it mean one can never have that STI or STD again?
No, STDs are not, they are not like measles, that once you have measles you can't have it again in your lifetime. You can keep having STDs for as long as possible, for as long as you have unprotected sex and you're exposed to these infections. Even after you get treated, you can still have them again. So that now brings me to there's what we call the 4 C's in the management of STIs and STDs. So those C's are counseling. You need to counsel people on appropriate on how to have safe sex, on appropriate practice about their lifestyle and sexual practices. You need to counsel people about that. People also need to be compliant, you know, with the instructions you give them, the medication you give them. Take the medications like you've been told to, you know, use them the way you're supposed to. Then you also need to treat the contacts of that person. You need to treat the contacts, and then also we talk about condoms. So in the treatment of sexually transmitted infections, those are important things that people need to adhere to. And you know, I mentioned the at least once a year screening or testing. So it also actually depends on what is causing the organism causing this infection. You know, I said there are different things: bacteria, viruses, parasites. So for some of these viral infections, for example, hepatitis B and human papillomavirus, those ones actually have vaccines that people can take to protect themselves from getting those infections. So for those, for example, for hepatitis B, if you do the test and it is negative, you can go ahead and start the vaccine.
So where can one actually get this vaccine?
It's available
in all clinics?
It's available in all clinics everywhere in Nigeria, but the catch to it is that for young people, it is, you know, it is included in the national immunization schedule for children. So that is free. But for people outside that age range of 0 to 5 years, you have to pay to get the vaccine. And you know, in Nigeria and other developing countries, people don't actually take their health seriously. If they are not down and cannot get up from their bed, they don't feel there's anything wrong. So that is why you need to go for regular medical checkup, and then depending on your lifestyle, what you do, you know, the kind of risk that you have, your healthcare provider can then advise you on what to do. So there's a vaccine for hepatitis B, there's a vaccine for human papillomavirus, which is even which was just rolled out in Lagos State this week. You know?
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, it was just introduced into our immunization schedule. So
for children,
for girls 9 to 14 years old.
Free.
Those are the targets for now, and it is free. And the reason for this is because, you know, you want to, because HPV is a sexually transmitted infection, so you want to catch the children before they get exposed. You know, so you want to protect them before they get to that age when they start having sex. So that is why they are limiting it to that age group. Although every female can take it, you know, females between the ages of 21 to 49, you know, every female can take it. Even if you've been sexually exposed, you can still take it. But the best time to take it is before the person starts to have sex. So that is why they are targeting girls 9 to 14 years old.
Yes. Now I'm interested about I'm interested in the Lagos State government rolling out the vaccine. Can you please give us more information of that, so that a lot of people that are watching will be able to go, in case if they have girls from 9 to 14, like you said, where they can go to, how they can go about it, and you know, the information that is needed, please.
Okay, so for the HPV vaccine that's just been rolled out in Nigeria, it is not just in Lagos State. So it is by the Ministry of Health with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. So that has just been introduced into our immunization schedule. So for now, it is not only females that can get HPV infection.
Okay.
Boys can also have it. But for now, because females are the ones that are more at risk, you know, HPV is the culprit for cervical cancer.
Okay.
Yeah, and because HPV is sexually transmitted, that is why for now they are limiting it to girls only. Okay. Maybe as time goes on, everybody would have access to it. Older girls and other women too would have access to it. Boys can have access to it. But for now, it is limited to girls between the ages of 9 to 14 years who we believe are not sexually exposed yet. So if they take the vaccine now, they are protected against cervical cancer and HPV infections, genital warts in the future.
In the future.
Yeah.
Amazing, amazing. I really like that. Now, talking about this genital disease, STDs and the STIs. Now, who is more likely, who is prone to have it, the male or the female? Or is both parties? And who does it endangers the more? The sex, which of them?
Okay, so about who is more at risk, I would say the females, because the way the female anatomy is, the anatomy of the female genitalia, females are more at risk than males, you know. The female genitalia has more surface area, you know, because don't let me go into medical terms now, but explaining it in simple terms. The structure of the female genital area, the anatomy of that area, predisposes females more to having infections than males. Okay, let me talk about the urethra. The male urethra is long, the female urethra is short. So if you have, let's just look at it in simple terms. If you have a short tube and a long tube, and then you're putting something in a short tube and in a long tube, it would reach the short tube faster than it will reach the long tube. So just to have an idea of how it works, so females are more at risk because of their anatomical build-up than males.
Oh, wow. Now you are saying that we have a short, you know, let's use tube, and the male have the long. Is that why females cannot hold their urine? Because I need to know. Because sometimes when we sit down, we are working, and you know, you feel like, okay, the urine, I'm not pressed yet. It's giving you a signal that go to the toilet and urinate. But you still sit down and be like, okay, but the moment you stand up, if you don't go to that toilet at that point, forget it, you just pee on yourself. Is that the reason?
I used to think it's men who can hold their urine, because you see men peeing everywhere.
Honestly, to be honest, yes, it looks like that, but I think it's females that can hold theirs. I feel men can hold theirs, you understand?
But
and
they don't.
But yes, some of them do. You know why they don't? Because every area is where they can actually urinate. But for ladies, we hold it in, and sometimes as if when you get to the front of your door, you're just about to open your door. That is when that urine is telling you, I'm not staying any longer. I just have to. Anyway, let's just make it on a light note. We have our Zoom guest who has joined us already. We have Dr. Emmanuel Onyenuche, who is a medical practitioner and also a medical director of Waterfalls Hospital, and of course he's joining us live from Surulere, Lagos State. Dr. Emmanuel, can we have you?
Yes, thank you, Barbara. Good morning, doctor in the studio, and good morning, our audience. It's a pleasure to be here again.
Okay, it's good to have you here. Okay, doctor, I would like to ask you this first question. You know, as a medical practitioner, definitely in your hospital, what are the, how will I put it, what are the very common genital diseases that you encounter in the hospital, you know, when people come? And can you kindly tell us, give us an advice when it comes to those genital diseases?
Yeah, okay, thank you. The common ones we see are usually sexually transmitted ones. Um, you see things like outside the obvious ones like HIV and hepatitis. We know that maybe because we always test for them. So HIV, hepatitis, and the rest. So we see them also commonly because of the testing. But others that you affect the genitals like gonorrhea. Once in a while, we notice gonorrhea, chlamydia, uh, also wax. We've seen a couple of wax, genital wax recently, and the ones we call vaginitis that will cause women to, especially in women, either they are itching or having foul smelling discharge or discharge generally. So we see genital warts, we see vaginitis in the women. Sometimes we also see what they call herpes. In addition to the common ones I say like HIV and hepatitis, those are some of the ones we see in the course of our practice.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel, for that one. We have a message from one of our viewers, and his name is Yusuf from Agege. He said, could you please explain what gonorrhea is? He would like to know what gonorrhea is, and if I want to help him better, I think you should, when you're explaining, tell us what it is, how to prevent it, and the symptoms that could probably show that you have gonorrhea. And of course, no self-medication, but definitely to meet the medical practitioner. But please, can you go ahead and answer that question?
Yeah, okay. So gonorrhea is one of the oldest the sexually transmitted infections. Although many people may not know what it is exactly, but you can hardly see any adults that have not heard about gonorrhea infections. So it's sexually transmitted. It's caused by a bacteria. It's caused by bacteria, and it shows easily. It shows easily in men than women. Not that women can't get it, but because men, because of the way their sexual organ is also, they can have things like pain during urination. They can also have things like pus-like discharge from their urethra, from the penis. They want to wee wee. They feel pain. They notice discharge like a pus coming out from the penis, and sometimes what we describe like the urine going splitting, as if when we ask them, when you wee wee, does it go come in one stream or does it spread as a shower kind of? Does it have multiple streams like two, three, four when you want to wee wee? So those are some of the things we can use to suspect that this person may have gonorrhea, pain on urination, that splitting of the stream of urine, the pus. Can see something like pus coming out with urine. They say, when I want to urinate, I see something like pus. Those are some of the things that can make us to suspect that this person has uh, gonorrhea. Women also have, but their own doesn't show as big as the men, obviously because of their anatomy, like I had the doctor also say. So what do we do when we come like that? We culture. We take a swab. If there is pus from the penis, urethra, we take a swab and take it to the lab to confirm. It's one of the easiest lab. I mean, the lab people will tell you to confirm it. Even when they put a slide, they can easily view to see if there is gonorrhea. So once it's tied to those symptoms and confirm culture, it's easy. They can also take the urine and do the urine culture. So but generally on prevention, it's the same sexual habits or behaviors that will prevent most of the sexually transmitted infections. So if people play safe sex, that means first, people who have multiple sexual partners are more exposed, just like other sexually transmitted or genital diseases like we are discussing. So using protection like condom is helpful in this regard to prevent the spread of gonorrhea. But of course, when someone feels those symptoms, it's important to visit the clinic to see the doctor so that it can be properly examined, and then it is taken from there. And of course, it is not done in isolation. If the person has a sexual partner or contact, it is also important that to prevent reinfection, that the both are tested and treated. And that is a short brief about gonorrhea.
Okay, all right. So does being on pill protect people from STDs? Like if you're on constant pills, just to maybe during or after sexual intercourse, does it prevent STDs?
Yeah, the challenge with that line of thought is that people are going to abuse. And when you say pill, I think you are talking about antibiotics. So the challenge there is that people are going to abuse antibiotics, because antibiotics is not like eating food or taking anything. So by the time you constantly expose, especially in doses that are not optimal, what will happen eventually is that there will be a resistance. The
Okay.
organism will become resistant to those, in the sense that when the person now needs the antibiotic, it doesn't work. So although people do it, they say, oh, they will mention a particular brand that they took after. It may confer some protection, but over time, as a habit, it is going to boomerang and cause the person to have resistant type of those diseases, which those antibiotics cannot commonly take. So when the person is down with infection or so, he will now begin to look for a stronger and more sensitive antibiotics to take care of simple things. Gonorrhea is very sensitive and can easily be treated with even some common antibiotics. But when someone, and like some other sexually transmitted infection also, but abuse of antibiotics will bring resistance and cause future problems.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Emmanuel Onyenuche, for that one. That's amazing. And because of our time, we'll not be able to take any questions. Or response. We have a lot of questions here, but we'll not be able to take it. Now, over to our guest in the house, Dr. Fumilade. Now, the question is, some people say they have pains when having sexual intercourse. Now, does that mean that they have STD? And also, when they see bumps down there in their private part, does it mean they have herpes, or is just something they should need to treat very quickly in like a minute? Can you please answer that?
Okay, so talking about, you asked about bumps and
painful intercourse.
So there are so many things that could cause painful intercourse. Infections could be a cause of painful intercourse. There's also something we call vaginismus in the females, when they have this tightening or spasms in their genital area. So it could lead to pain. Sometimes it could be psychological, anxiety. Sometimes could make people feel pain, especially the females during sexual intercourse. So there are different things that could cause pain during sexual intercourse. Infection is one of them, but then there are other things like I mentioned that could cause pain during sexual intercourse. So that is why it is important for you to always don't hide your symptoms, because when we talk about STIs and STDs, people feel that shame. They don't want to talk about it, even with their partner. They don't want to discuss it with their partner because of that shame and that stigma associated with issues around sex. So people shouldn't feel that. They shouldn't feel shame. They should visit their clinics and see their doctor to know exactly what is going on.
Thank you very much for that one. It's been an amazing section. Thank you so much, Dr. Fumilade Adepoju. Thank you so much for gracing today, and I really learned a lot.